Hello again, we are back, and let me welcome now in this panel Mr. Ivan Korčok, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Slovak Republic. Good morning, Mr. Minister. Mr. Bujar Osmani, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Republic of North Macedonia. Good morning. And Ms. Donika Gervalla-Schwarz, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kosovo. Good morning to all three of you ministers. Let me start with the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Slovakia. What is the position of Slovakia regarding the war in Ukraine? We recently read a survey that more than 30% of Slovaks believe that the war in Ukraine was deliberately provoked by the West. And let me add to this question a news that is world news today regarding your decision to donate your S-300 defense air system to Ukraine. A decision that Mr. Biden said that it was a very good decision, and thank Slovakia for that.
Well, thank you, first of all, to the organizers and Simeon Tomokos, our good friend. I'm very glad I can be here. It's an outstanding opportunity for all of us to meet and discuss. I'm also very glad that Delphi Economic Forum is partnering with the Slovak similar organization, Globsec. It's great that the two are getting together and will provide platform from Central Europe, here from the south, and bring people together. Second point, I want to remind the audience that the title of this discussion is Europe after Ukraine. Normally, it's the moderator which challenges those sitting in the panel, but I'd like to challenge you back with this because it sounds a bit strange, Europe after Ukraine. There will be no after Ukraine. It's rather already now Europe with Ukraine and Ukraine in Europe. I want to say that because what we see at this moment, it's a huge, huge political defeat of Russia. They're losing politically on all fronts. I'll come back to the question, but I need to say this. Imagine within a month, there is a discussion about NATO enlargement. We've had the other day meeting of NATO ministerial meeting. Nikos was there, Bujar was there as well. There is serious discussion underway about Finland and Sweden possibly joining the alliance. Did Russia wanted this? This is the question. It's a political defeat because there will be more in NATO physically on the eastern flank. The outcome is that NATO and the European Union and the entire West is more united than we've seen that in a modern history. Decoupling from dependency on Russian gas deliveries and oil deliveries is underway. So I think, once again, this is a huge victory already. Ukrainians are fighting heroically for their country, but this is a defeat, and I think from this moment on, Ukraine is indefinitely and ultimately become part of what I call political West. So therefore, the title I wanted to challenge it a little bit. It's not Europe after Ukraine, but rather Ukraine in Europe. Now, very quickly to your questions. First on S-300.
Yes, please.
We have decided to provide this defensive system because there was number one request coming from Ukraine, because as you know, at this moment they need weaponry, they need weapons, they need military assistance. We've been providing it, but they need more of this type of air defense in view of Russian continued military operation. We've decided to do so because it is, I have to say, it is a defensive system. That system can never be triggered unless there is an assault. So therefore, nobody can accuse Slovakia of, as the Slovak opposition is doing, that we are dragging Slovakia into war with Russia. That's not the case. There would not be any military assistance of this scale. There would not be this decision of us to provide S-300 to Ukraine if there was not war. And of course, Slovakia is beefing up its own air defense, and as we speak, the 4th battery of Patriots is being deployed in Slovakia. So it's a definitely win-win situation, but this is both legally sound and politically justifiable step that we've done because we are so grateful to what Ukraine is doing. And the opinion poll in Slovakia, because that was also part of your question, indeed, we've had before the war the situation where actually majority of our people has indicated that it's rather United States and the West who is provoking this Russian aggressive posture, if you want. But the war on the 24th, which started on the 24th, was an eye-opener. So the public mood has shifted, and now it's a clear majority, 70% of Slovaks, who support the position of the government, supporting the assistance to Ukraine, our positions within NATO. But we know that it is key, or there are two aspects which are key in that. Still, we are not performing as good as we would like to on the disinformation front. There is a disinformation propaganda underway, also coming from Russia and via internet portals and outlets in Slovakia, and they have a very, very heavy impact on the public opinion. And number two, yes, we have part of politics, which is driving its political agenda by spreading the anti-American sentiment. They say America and NATO, it is the same. Everybody knows that the United States is a key part of NATO, but they're running this anti-NATO, anti-West sentiment via anti-American sentiment. And then there are historical reasons. I stopped by that, of course, the Slavic Brotherhood sort of perception, historically given, it's still present. Our positions is not based on Russophobia. I have a huge respect for Russian nation, for Russian culture, but we are absolutely clear where we stand when it comes to this war, which I don't think is a Putin's war anymore. It's rather a Russia's war. Right. And I'll stop here.
Thank you. Mr. Osmani, yesterday you visited the Polish-Ukrainian border as a part of the OSCE Troika, and you met with Minister Kuleba, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. What are your impressions on the ground?
Well, indeed, I have just arrived in Delphi from a small town named Korčok at the Polish-Ukrainian border, and as incoming chairman in office of OSCE, together with the current chair in office, Zbigniew Rau of Poland and the former Anne Lind of Sweden, we met Foreign Minister Kuleba of Ukraine and visited a refugee facility near the border crossing. In fact, it was a shopping mall that has been transformed into a temporary shelter for the thousands of refugees, that children and women and elderly people that have been entering Poland in the recent weeks, the stores being converted to living rooms and kitchen and kindergarten and people. And while it's interesting that while listening with Dmitro the stories of these peoples, he got the message that a train station had been shelled in Ukraine, and many women and children had been killed, and many had been injured, waiting to depart from Ukraine. So indeed, we are witnessing a humanitarian catastrophe in Ukraine, and I think the need for urgent action is more than it's needed, and I have to express my appreciation and high esteem for Polish people and Polish society, but also the neighboring country for opening their homes and their hearts to millions of refugees. We are all united in condemnation of the Russian aggression in Ukraine, which represents a blatant violation of the international law and rules-based international order, but particularly we condemn, and this was the intention of yesterday's visit, to send the message of support from the OSCE Troika and from this organization, and particularly to condemn the atrocities committed on civilian population. And we call for those who have perpetrated those perpetrator of those atrocities to be held accountable. And certainly we urged Russia to immediately stop this unjustified war, but certainly we offered the mechanisms and the platform of the OSCE to restore the channels of communication and dialogue. North Macedonia, as you know, has been unequivocal in its stance toward the war in Ukraine, not only because it's part of the alliance and it's a credible ally in the Western Balkans, but because this is an issue of moral stance of countries. In the United Nations General Assembly, the situation was represented as black and white. There are no gray zones, so you cannot be on the fence in regard to this unjustified and unprovoked war in Ukraine. You are either with the democratic world or you are with the 5 countries such as Eritrea and North Korea and Syria, Russia and Belarus. We have aligned with EU sanctions against Russia, not only those imposed as a response to the aggression, but rather retroactively joined aligned with all the restrictive measures from 2014 onwards, thus reaching 100% alignment rate with common foreign and security policies of the European Union. And now we have a troika of EU candidate countries who have achieved this 100% alignment, and I name them a symbolic 100% trio, and certainly Kosovo is part of this group. The region is moving in the right direction in terms of positioning itself vis-à-vis this aggression, and we will continue to do so in the future.
Thank you. Ms. Schwarz, what is the position of Kosovo regarding the war of Ukraine invasion?
First of all, maybe just a few seconds, because it's the first participation of Kosovo at the Delphi Forum. So I wanted to thank very much everybody who contributed to have us here around. And it's for us an outstanding opportunity, not only to meet a lot of people and to talk about Kosovo, but to understand even more the chances of the cooperation in the future between Greece and Kosovo, but between Kosovo and other countries as well. So in Ukraine, from the first day, Kosovo aligned with the EU and the US sanctions, as the whole region except of one did. We have, with our very modest capacities, being a small country, we have thought what can we do more than just formally align with the sanctions, so that we have invited 20 Ukrainian journalists to come to Kosovo and to work in Kosovo, because as everybody else, we face this hybrid war of false informations and of fake news. And at the same time, we have opened our country for up to 5,000 Ukrainian refugees, and have sent humanitarian aid for the refugees and for people in Ukraine. But I cannot hide how much we admire how brave Ukrainian is defending their own country and their own people. And seeing these pictures of millions leaving the country in our region, and especially in Kosovo, a lot of people simply are being reminded on the 90s, when 800,000 people from Kosovo were refugees and 80% of the population were displaced. And having my colleague Bujar from Northern Macedonia here, who was on the side of accepting our people together with Albania, most of them, these are pictures I had hoped that we will see never again in Europe. But not learning from the past makes you to repeat the mistakes. And I accept that it's important to talk about future and sometimes to give the impression that the future is what counts, because yes, the future is what counts, but only if you learn from the experience in the past. And from the first day, our government is a new government. From the first day last year when we took office, we tried in every multilateral forum and in every bilateral talk, we tried to raise the awareness about where are we going with Russia behaving as they behave and with our other autocrats behaving as they do, because you know they do not hide their intentions. Right. They have shown us what they are going to do in Ukraine, and we, the democratic world, we were expecting them not to do that, instead of taking the important measures that need to be taken. So I hope that for now, the present, and for the future, we react as we should. Right. And I'm convinced that one mistake Mr. Putin has made. He has not counted on our solidarity and our strong response. And I hope that this will accompany us in the future as well.
Thank you. Mr. Korčok, since Slovakia is a member of the visiting team, how is the cooperation of these countries taken into consideration that we had election in Hungary last week, and we are approaching the Slovak presidency of V4 on the 1st of July?
Visegrad is a very useful platform. It was established 30 years ago, and the main objective back then was to get all four of us into European Union. That was fulfilled. But within European Union, we clearly see a potential for cooperation within V4. And I can say it will continue. It will continue after Hungarian elections as well. Nevertheless, the reality which we cannot ignore and further blur is that Hungary has a bit different position towards Russia and towards Ukraine than the three other Visegrad countries. And we will reflect on it. It is my intention to reflect on it and simply not to hide the fact that when it comes to foreign policy issue, Visegrad is less cohesive, less consistent as a group. But we will get over it, and under Slovak presidency we will focus and concentrate more on internal cooperation, because there is a huge potential within V4 to work on infrastructure, energy cooperation, in areas like emergency. So there will be maybe more of Visegrad in this than it has been Visegrad so far in the area of foreign policy and internal EU issues. We will definitely reflect on that.
Thank you. Mr. Osmani, what is the position of North Macedonia in the war as a NATO member? Because we're seeing, you're facing delays on your EU path.
Let me first relate to what Donika said. In 1999, I was a medical student and worked in the refugee camp near Skopje, where 300,000 civilians from Kosovo has sought refuge in fleeing from the atrocities of the Milošević's army back then. And now the images coming from Ukraine, I can easily relate with those images that I've seen then in the Balkans, and the majority of people in the Western Balkans are living witnesses, and they can relate these images to their own personal stories, and this creates some sense of vulnerability in the region and a different way of reaction to the news that are coming from Ukraine. North Macedonia is a credible NATO ally in the region, but also as a credible EU partner in the region, has been, as I said, unequivocal. Regardless of the vulnerability that it is in the country, and EU stalemate is a source of systemic vulnerability in the country, creating a fertile ground for Russian malign influences, for emotional reaction of people who are simply transforming the emotions of frustration into some kind of anti-Western emotions or pro-Russian emotions. We were unequivocal in our position. Our parliament adopted a declaration in condemnation of the aggression with overwhelming majority, including with the support of all parties across the political landscape. As I said, we joined the sanctions against Russia. We provided humanitarian aid to Ukraine. We provided military aid to Ukraine. And also we have opened our borders to accept any Ukrainian that would reach the borders of North Macedonia. I hope that European Union will understand the importance of the moment, and it will take a strategic leadership toward the Western Balkans, as it did in the year 2000 when it took strategic leadership with the Central and Eastern European countries. And I think that the Russian aggression has shown, unfortunately, in the most tragic way, how important that decision of the European Union was to integrate Central and Eastern European countries for the unity, for the security, and for the strength of the transatlantic alliance.
Ms. Schwarz, what do you think about the EU enlargement? Will we bring stability to the region?
I think that the Western Balkans is a very natural part of Europe and should be as well a natural part of the European Union. But we, as I said, we need to learn the lessons from what happened. So we expect the European Union, we expect the United States to think maybe 2 steps further. And I don't think that anybody is sitting here who believes that once Ukrainians have defeated Putin, he is going home. So we should think about what will be his next steps. And one of the scenarios that everybody is talking is focusing in the Balkans. Right. And then we have Bosnia-Herzegovina in a very uncomfortable situation in these days. We have the danger of Bosnia falling apart as a state not later than in this June during the French presidency. So the European Union should show leadership, and they should open not only for Ukraine, but very fast and very soon for the Western Balkans. And more important than that, it should no more be possible to sit between the chairs. It should be very clear. You cannot be for Ukraine and for Putin at the same time. And that's the message that you should send. You cannot take EU money to buy Russian weapons. So it's time to decide what will be in the next 20 years, and we will support and appreciate every action in that direction.
You want to add something, Minister of Foreign Affairs?
Sorry, because I know our time is over,
yes.
but I have to say it because I'm sitting here as the only one who represents country in the EU. And I'm absolutely certain I would speak on behalf of my friend Nikos Dendias as well. We absolutely support enlargement. We absolutely are insisting on the need to deliver on our side, right. On the European side, to reciprocate to the efforts which countries are presenting in the transformation and meeting the benchmarks. Here, especially, I want to say, sitting next to North Macedonian colleague, it is the moment now for you and Albania to start finally negotiations. I see no reason to further postpone it, the beginning. In a broad political context, this is absolutely critical because we have to see reality as it is. There are folks running around in the Western Balkans, other competitors, other opponents, and they're gaining ground there. And this is our neighborhood. We must not lose this opportunity and momentum to get them closer Having said that, we appreciate so much in Slovakia. There are so many countries of the Western Balkans. We're 100% aligned with our positions, including Kosovo. I mean, in spite of the fact where we are as a non-recognizers, but we're not blind. We know exactly, I want to say it here on the record, we appreciate such a clear position of view of North Macedonia, of Albania, I think Montenegro. This is extremely important at this moment so that the Russian regime sees and views where the countries of the Western Balkans stand. And in response to that, we in the EU must give a right answer. And that is to get you closer, because these countries are doing tremendous progress. So sorry, but I wanted to say this.
Thank you all, Minister of Slovakia, Minister of North Macedonia, and Minister of Kosovo. Thank you all for being us this morning in the Delphi Economic Forum. Thank you.